Yesterday I was studying Genesis 32, the part where Jacob wrestled with God, and a lot of us overlook just how deep it actually is, but I'm going to share a little bit of my notes from what I took yesterday. Now, before we go in, I'm going to probably have to do like multiple parts on this because like I said, it's so much that you could pull from it and so many like life examples that you could take from it. But one of the parts that really struck me was in verse 29, Genesis 32, verse 29, when Jacob asked the man, or as we know, God, his name. And God responds to him by saying, like, why do you ask my name? And then in verse 30, it says how Jacob said, for I have seen God face to face. So I started asking God the question, like, God, if Jacob knew that it was you, if he knew that he was fighting or wrestling with you, why did he still ask you for your name? And he said to me, because Jacob wanted to fully understand what was going on and why he was wrestling with this man. And I was like, yo, that's crazy, because that's literally the same thing with us. Like, you know, in times where we're going through battles and we're wrestling with our faith, we're struggling, like we're trying to fully understand everything. We're trying to ask God all of these questions, but it's not for us to understand, just like it wasn't for Jacob to understand. Let me clarify. It wasn't for him to understand in that moment, because eventually he did understand that it was God who he was struggling with. And as we know, as we read, Jacob ended up receiving a blessing, having his name changed and, you know, becoming Israel. But he didn't understand it until he learned from it and grew from that experience. So that tells me in our lives, we're not meant to understand everything. We're not meant to understand everything in the moment that is happening, but we're meant to learn from these experiences. We're meant to grow from these experiences. And then once we learn and we grow, then we can understand. So that's why something could have happened 5 years ago, but you're in a better off situation today. And then you start thinking back like, okay, all of those bad things needed to happen for me to be the person that I am today. So it starts to make sense in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 when God tells us to trust in him with all our heart and lean not on our own understanding. Because leaning on our own understanding, we're not going to be able to understand it. Job didn't understand why he was, losing his family, losing all of this, or all of his wealth and all of these things. Like, he didn't understand it. Jonah didn't understand why he was trying to run away from this thing God was telling him to do. Abraham didn't understand why God told him to leave the land that he's known for 25 years and be called the father of many nations. Like, we're not meant to understand everything. All we're meant to do is to trust him, to lean on him, to keep on wrestling, to keep on fighting, to keep on pushing through.